For this tutorial, we will need wafer paper, a 1.5-inch styrofoam bowl, a block of styrofoam. I will use 4 sizes of round paper cutters. You can trace the circles and cut them. Small scissors, Florist Wire gauge number 20, green florist ribbon, petal dust, green and yellow. Soft small brushes. Edible paper glue, which is made by taking a little water and adding small pieces of wafer paper to the water. In this case, I'm using leftover pieces that I had accumulated. Allow the paper to dissolve in water at least half hour before use. And if you have a flower drying rack, you may use it as well. I think I've covered pretty much everything that we need to make these flowers. So let's get started. Start by taking a piece of wire and with a pair of pliers, bend the tip of one end like so. Now insert wire into bowl. Just enough so you don't see the bend. Now we will cover the entire bowl with wafer paper and glue. We do this in case there is a gap between petals. You will not see the surface of the bowl, but the texture of the paper. Again, I'm using leftover scrap I had accumulated. Although this way it takes me much longer than if I cut out larger pieces of paper to cover the bowl, but it is in this way that I'm saving paper, which is not very cheap. You may do the same, or you may cut bigger pieces of paper and apply to the bowl with the glue, just like I'm doing here. Although the paper seems very rigid, while we are wetting it, it softens and we can stick it to the bowl. Always use the brush and not your fingers. After we have covered the entire bowl with the wafer paper, we will let it dry. The next step is to cut a slit to the center of the circle. Then, using the glue, lightly glue one side of the slit and overlap it onto the other side as to close the circle again. Now our circle will look like a Chinese hat. I'm going to start with the smallest circle first. I've prepared 10 circles. Not to confuse you, each size circle will have 2 rounds of 5 petals each round. I should mention that when gluing the circles or petals, always put the slit pointing down or to the end of the wire. Take the bowl and starting on the top, cover with glue and place the first 5 petals almost flat so they will look as though the petals are closed. If you like to let the ball dry for a few minutes, you may do so. That way it's easier to work with. Next, do the next round, but this time do not flatten the circles, but glue only the bottom part and attach staggering the circles, so the petals will look as though they are open. Now we will do the second size of petals. From here on, we will do half open petals by only gluing the bottom half of the petal in a staggering fashion until we finish doing all the sizes and rounds. I've used from 8 to 10 petals for each round for each size of petals. Make your flower as small or as big as you like by adding rows of petals. And on to the third size of petals. We will do it in the same fashion as before. Always glue the bottom part of the petals and stagger them. I will also glue the bottom side just to make sure that the petals adhere to each other. The more you do these flowers, the better you will get in assembling them and finding your own way or your own method of doing it. Notice how the flower is taking its shape now. Before it didn't look like anything, but now if you look at it, it's becoming pretty and beautiful, and by the time we finish, it'll look gorgeous. So hang in there with me, we are almost finished. And sometimes accidents happen while we make flowers. Notice how I just knocked over the jar of glue? I will finish cleaning this mess off camera and then I will return to you. And now we will do our last size of petals. We will do the same thing as we did before, except this time we will work with the flower upside down to make it easier to glue the petals. We will do 2 rounds of 5 petals each round. And remember, the slit should always point towards the end of the wire. Let the flower dry before coloring it. To color the flower, I will be using petal dust. I'll use it dry and won't mix it with any liquid such as water, alcohol, or vodka. I will do the center light green and the rest of the flower light yellow. I will do it with a soft brush. When brushing the flower, don't go too deep down, just on the surface and on the edge of the petals only. Now, using Florist Tape, we will wrap the wire. Stretch the tape lightly to activate the glue. Then wrap around a couple of times. Push up as to touch the top of the wire. Then start wrapping downwards on a diagonal fashion. And that's it. You are done. And I like to give credit to Cheshire Bakery for showing this tutorial on her channel. I will leave you the link to her channel so you can visit her as well. Now let's make some texturized leaves. To texturize the paper for the leaves, we need to fry it in a non-stick and smooth skillet like this one. I only use this skillet to fry paper and not for any other use. I've colored water with leaf green gel color. Then I downloaded a Ranunculus leaf and cut out 2 sizes on a folded wafer paper sheet. I then glue the bottom of one leaf and sandwich a piece of wire over the glue and between the 2 pieces of leaves. Let it dry for a couple of minutes. Meanwhile, I have my skillet on my stove over slow medium heat. Let me mention that this technique of frying wafer paper I learned from Anna Astashkina. She's an awesome chef and she makes beautiful work with wafer paper. I will leave a link to her channel so you may visit her. After the wire is dried, I pass the leaves through the colored water and let it soak for no more than 2 seconds or so on both sides. You do this quickly so that the wire doesn't detach from the leaf as it gets wet. Then throw the colored leaf onto the skillet and let it fry. You will notice that the leaf will start to shrink as the water evaporates. When the paper is ready, it will glide on the surface of the skillet very easily. Most likely the leaves will curl up a little. If you like your leaves flat before it dries completely, with a rubber spatula, flatten each side of the leaf very lightly. And our leaves are now texturized. Look how crispy and beautiful they look. Here I want to show you how I wrapped all the flowers and leaves together. I'll show you how easy it is. The first thing to do is to position the flowers and leaves the way you think they look most natural. You may have to bend to one side or the other the flowers and leaves using a pair of pliers. Once you are happy with the way they look, stretch the tape to activate the glue. Wrap around the wires a couple of times to tighten the wires. Then continue wrapping downward as you did before when you wrapped the individual flowers. I use flower spikes to insert the flowers in the cake. I never insert the wires directly into the cake, as that can contaminate your cake. That's a mistake that a lot of people make. You may purchase these flower spikes online or in any store that sells cake supplies. And before I finish this video, I like to show you how I used these flowers. I used them on this two-tier cake. The top tier is a double barrel cake. In a future tutorial, I will teach you how to cover a tall cake with fondant, like this one. If you notice the holes on the cake, that's where I inserted the flower spikes. I am cutting and bending the stems or wires to insert the flowers into the spikes. I am also using fondant to cover some imperfections around the spikes. I will show you the final product when I'm finished. I like to show you a close-up of the finished product, the leaves, the flowers, and I also trimmed the borders of the cakes with lace cut on sugar sheet and cut with a lace cutter. And here is the finished product. I fixed all the imperfections with fondant, and I also added 2 flowers directly onto the cake since they were not attached to any wires. In the back I didn't put any decorations, but you can put 3 or 4 flowers in the back so the cake will look decorated in the front and also in the back. And this has been all for today. Thank you for watching Yolanda's Cakes. I hope that you enjoyed the tutorial. Be at peace with everyone as long as it is possible for you. Thank you and God bless.